Chapter 259. When the people who met Jingwan's requirements gathered together, as expected, they were all good-looking. Some of them were even more pleasing to the eye. If these people had evil intentions, it would be fine. If they were matched with this kind of woman who wanted to climb into their bed, it would be a perfect match. However, if they wanted to live a peaceful life and met this kind of woman, it would be their misfortune of 8 lifetimes. In the future, their house would not be peaceful and would be in chaos all day long. Novel Jingwan wanted to punish them, but she didn't intend to implicate innocent people. Because they didn't know what was going on, they stood quietly with their eyes lowered and didn't dare to look up. They all knew that the prince had brought the princess here. They couldn't afford to be disrespectful. However, since they had come, Jingwan couldn't let them come here in vain. After receiving Jingwan's signal, an old maid explained to them that the master intended to appoint a marriage and asked if they were willing. When they saw the people kneeling on the ground, they basically knew what was going on. These 2 girls were one of the best in the manor. They were beautiful and at the same time pampered by their families. They were essentially farmers, but they were raised like young ladies in the boudoir, never having to do any household chores. Many men of the right age were interested in them, but unfortunately they had high standards. From the very beginning, they had aimed at their masters and wanted to live a better life. They were still far from reaching that step, and their families began to look down on them. Naturally, this made many people unhappy, and their intentions faded. However, no one said it out loud, and sometimes they even swallowed their anger. After all, if they really managed to climb up to their masters, they really didn't dare to offend them. Now, it seemed that they had found a chance, but they didn't succeed. They were caught by the princess. Moreover, the princess wanted to marry them. It would be a lie to say that they weren't moved. However, they were exposed like this in public. If they married back, they would be laughed at. At the same time, they were worried that they would be cuckolded. Therefore, even the old widowers over 50 kept silent. They already had grandchildren. Who would do such a shameful thing? At this point, they knew that there was no turning back. The 2 girls and their families hoped that someone would stand up for them. In fact, there were so many people who liked them. At this time, it was natural that they would fight to be the first to stand up for them. Not only them, but the men of the right age who had received the news were the main characters. Unfortunately, the idea was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. No one stood up. Not to mention the expected desperate marriage proposals, even these old things suddenly felt endless fear. They finally realized that things were not as simple as they thought. Their lives might go into the unknown. They didn't dare to play any tricks and kowtow to beg for mercy. It seems that you don't get along well with people. Jingwan took a sip of tea and said lightly, Your Highness, Your Highness, Your Highness. Don't cry so sadly. I didn't kill you. Look, don't you lack men? I just helped you find one. If you don't think it's enough, you can have 1 or more. It's said that a woman doesn't serve a second husband. Look at you climbing into the bed so actively. You're probably not a woman of integrity. There are no suitable men in the manor. His Highness said that there are more in the manor next door. There will be suitable men. Don't worry, wait slowly. Your Highness, don't. Noisy. Then the person who shouted was gagged. Li Hongyuan looked at Jingwan in a good mood. However, Jingwan didn't even look at him. In front of so many people, Li Hongyuan wouldn't flirt with Jingwan. If he really did that, it would really be a disgrace to her and disrespect her. Li Hongyuan also knew why she ignored him. Wan was so smart. She must have thought it through. It was inevitable that she would be angry. However, he knew that she would be angry, but he still did it happily. Next time, it would be worse. Li Hongyuan sighed. His body and mind were filled with joy. Jingwan glanced at him angrily. This bastard is still laughing. What are you laughing at? Now I want to beat you to death. Jingwan felt that he was in a better mood. His whole body seemed to be flying. The masters waited. No one dared to slack off. The waiting time was not as long as it sounded. According to these people's reactions, Jingwan roughly knew who these 2 women were. She didn't have so much psychological burden. 2 people, one was a sloppy widower, the other was a lame old bachelor in his 40s who didn't have a wife. One was lazy and the other was addicted to gambling. If you have a wife, you should live a good life and take good care of your wife. Jingwan's words were quite impolite. It could be seen that the anger had accumulated to a considerable extent. Even if these two people guessed what was going on, they didn't care at all. They thanked her profusely. They were people who couldn't even afford to sleep with the lowest brothel girl. Now that they had a wife who was as beautiful as a flower, it was like a pie falling from the sky. For them, it was absolutely not a disgrace. It was a joyous thing that was worth showing off to the world. Look, the others were still congratulating them. But these two simply couldn't close their mouths. These two women felt that the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. They almost fainted. One was 17 and the other was 18. They should have talked about marriage a long time ago, but they kept delaying it. This was their last chance. That was why they put all their eggs in one basket when the princess was here. In the end, they ended up like this. If they had known this, they would have married 2 years ago. They would have married a good man who would spoil them and love them. Maybe they would have already had their second child. Now, they had to marry that kind of man. They would rather die. It was all that jealous woman's fault. How could such a person be a princess? After all their hopes were broken, one of the women cursed like she had lost her mind. Many people's faces turned green. There were even people who were trembling like sifting chaff. They hurriedly covered her mouth, but it was already too late. Jingwan was still expressionless. Jin Qinhuang, who was in a good mood, instantly turned from sunny to stormy. He got up and walked over. The low pressure around him was like a substantial evil aura. Everywhere he went, everyone quickly retreated. Even the person who covered the woman's mouth also hurriedly retreated. Only that woman, as if she was fixed in place, couldn't move. Looking at the man who was approaching step by step, it was as if the god of death had arrived. She wanted to say something, but she couldn't even open her mouth. Li Hongyuan lifted his foot and kicked over. His heart was merciless. The woman was kicked to the ground. She screamed and then spat out a mouthful of blood. This was not over. He took a step forward and stepped on the woman's head to the ground. He forcefully crushed it. The bystanders seemed to have heard the sound of bones breaking. There was no doubt that he would directly crush her. Jin Qinhuang was cold and ruthless. It was definitely not a joke. The people present who had not seen it before clearly saw it at this moment. Those who were timid directly paralyzed. Jingwan was shocked. She hurriedly got up and hurriedly stepped forward to pull his arm. Wang Ye. Li Hongyuan turned back and held Jingwan's hand. He pulled her and walked back as if nothing had happened. You are too benevolent. If I were you, for those who want to climb into my husband's bed, without saying anything, I would first slash their faces, break their hands and feet, and sell them to the lowest level brothel. Otherwise, these people will never know pain. Let them go, but they still dare to bite their master. Li Hongyuan patiently taught Jingwan. However, everyone could hear that these words were said to Jingwan. It was better to say that it was said to other people. The master was the master. These people were nothing. Letting you live was benevolence. Letting you die was just a matter of a sentence. From today onwards, there would most likely be no more people in this manner who would harbor any wild thoughts. It was said that the weather in June, a child's face would change as soon as they said so. In fact, Jin Qinhuang was also not that forgiving. Although it wasn't the first time that Jingwan had seen him like this, her understanding of this point was indeed becoming clearer. Because she did not know what to say and did not know how to face it, Jingwan kept silent. For Eunuch Mu and the others, they always felt that their master had become more frightening. In the past, most of the time he had a cold face. Under normal circumstances, he was taciturn. There were few times when they could see his smiling shadow. When he made a move, although they felt that it was scary, they felt that there was nothing unacceptable. Instead, they took it for granted that he was this kind of person. However, now he was clearly very warm just a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye he became thunderous. The contrast was too big, which made people's hair stand on end. Originally, they thought that their lives would be better after Princess Consort married into the family. Before this, it was indeed like this, but after this they were afraid that their skin would be tighter. However, it was absolutely right to stand firmly behind Princess Consort. They must not provoke Princess Consort, no matter what kind of nature. However, when dealing with similar situations, not to mention even Eunuch Mu was very skilled and quickly cleared the place. Go do what you should do. If anyone dared to say another word, they would probably die. After entering the room, Li Hongyuan held Jingwan in his arms. Wan, do you think I'm very cruel? Jingwan stared at him for a moment. She was not sure if he would explode again with one sentence. After hesitating, she decided to tell the truth. A little. Li Hongyuan smiled. Then are you afraid? Faced with a similar question again, Jingwan was surprisingly calm. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm afraid that you've killed too many people. So, can you not kill those who don't deserve to die? Li Hongyuan hugged her tighter and chuckled. Okay, I'll listen to you. After that, the two of them remained silent. After about half an incense stick's worth of time, Jingwan raised her head. Although she was no longer angry, she was still very unhappy. Prince, can you not play these boring games in the future? What? Li Hongyuan tilted his head slightly, puzzled. Jingwan wanted to complain. A man like you shouldn't act cute and deliberately lower your IQ. It was really not in line with your character. Well, Jingwan admitted that she was probably a little cute. To be more precise, she was tempted. Her face was too dirty, so everything she did was dirty. Don't play dumb with me. If you didn't do it on purpose, how could those two people get to your place? Look at those two, they can be considered old ladies. It's impossible that they only had thoughts about you. You didn't succeed when you came to the farmstead before, but this time you let them get close? If you didn't do it on purpose, then all the people around you should be replaced. For a man of Li Hongyuan's social class, if they were not close servant girls, not to mention the women outside, even the other women in the same manner, if the master didn't volunteer, no, to be more precise, the master incited them, they would easily climb into his bed. It was simply a joke. I admit that I did it on purpose. But Wan, don't you know why I did it? And you're still angry with me? As he spoke, he actually felt wronged. Jingwan wanted to cover her face, but she didn't want to face his question. So she turned her face away. Li Hongyuan smiled silently and didn't insist. Jingwan wanted to break free from his arms. Let go of me. I'll write an invitation. Invite people to the farmstead to play? There's no need. Mu-en and the others must have taken care of this kind of trivial matter. Are they serving you or serving me? Jingwan was speechless about those people's eagerness. They're discerning. They know that it's beneficial to curry favor with someone. He acquiesced. So what? Come, accompany me to read something. What is it? You'll know when you read it. Then, Jingwan saw a pile of important letters. This can't. Chapter 260. Then Jingwan saw a pile of important letters. This can't do. She wanted to leave. Li Hongyuan grabbed her hand. Wan, remember this. I'll say it for the last time. There's nothing about me that you can't know. If this happens again, I'll be angry. Or is it that Wan doesn't want to walk side by side with me? He smiled gently as usual. However, Jingwan felt that he was quite dangerous. He didn't look strange at all. Was he going to turn evil at the slightest disagreement? She couldn't help but tremble. Hey, let's talk nicely. Don't play with me like this. My heart can't take it. What's wrong? Are you cold? Still a little cold at night. You should put on more clothes. No, I'm not cold. Since he had said this, Jingwan didn't argue anymore. Anyway, they were already tied together. Since they were one, they naturally had to advance and retreat together. He was willing to give her enough status. This was a good start. She couldn't just do nothing now or even retreat because of some variables in the future. Jingwan smiled. There was a different kind of surprise in her smile. It was very faint. However, Li Hongyuan liked her smile very much. She was willing to take that step. She was willing to take the initiative to do something. Wan, help me go through these first. Make a note of the important points. Jingwan nodded. Even if I make a note, you'd better go through it yourself. After all, I haven't come into contact with these things. The information I think of may not be the same as the information you need. Wan, you're too modest. Jingwan hadn't stopped reading the court reports since she came to the capital. Regarding the matters of the imperial court, the old fox Luo had told her a lot. Although he had never heard her express her opinion, it didn't mean that she didn't know whether it was important or not. Even if this didn't happen, he believed that she wouldn't be ignorant. It's better to be cautious. Once I'm completely familiar with it, there won't be a problem. Yes, there are some things that I need to teach you. After that, the two of them quieted down and focused on the matters at hand. Ayuan, some things are too long and cumbersome. Why don't you get someone to write it more concisely? Jingwan believed that a certain someone didn't like to see people write nonsense to flatter him. Others might do it because of their habits, but he was different. If he didn't like it, he would definitely change it. Being long and cumbersome also has its uses. It's more convenient to hide the content. Jingwan instantly understood. This person always did things in secret. Naturally, things couldn't fall into the hands of others. Even if it was lost, he had to ensure that others wouldn't discover anything even if they got it. Short and precise, that was a profession suitable for an emperor. Thank you for your hard work. It would be difficult to pick out something with nutritional value from a pile of trash. Doesn't that mean I can't handle this part at all? Also, which ones are? In order not to attract attention, of course, he couldn't make part of it long and tedious while the other part was concise. After a long time, it was inevitable that people would notice. He had to come up with many tricks to deceive not only his enemies, but also his own people. There would definitely be hardships, but seeing it as something to pass the time, it would be much easier. They're all marked. Just pick out this part. I'll show you later. Li Hongyuan easily told her the important things. This kind of trust was really unreserved. Jingwan nodded. This kind of thing actually accounted for more than half of it. Even so, Jingwan was still a little shocked when she saw the rest. How should she put it? From her grandfather, she roughly understood the power in the hands of the current princes. Although each of them must have hidden chess pieces, they were in the minority after all. However, these in her hands were not unimportant. One by one, they were all strung together. Jingwan couldn't help but stare at a certain someone. What exactly did this person eat when he grew up? Why is Wan looking at your husband? Li Hongyuan teased. I just want to say that my husband is so amazing. Jingwan also teased back. Li Hongyuan raised his eyebrows. That's amazing. If Wan knows all of it, she'll probably prostrate herself in front of me. Naturally, Wan couldn't understand all the power in his hands in one night. Moreover, some things were too dark, and he didn't want her to know. This was just a strategic concealment. Well, the so-called surprise will only be effective the first time. After that, you'll be mentally prepared. Then, no matter how amazing it is, it won't be as amazing as the first time. If you do it well, people will think it's natural, but if you don't do it well, Jingwan laughed, and the meaning was self-evident. So, it's better for a man to continue to maintain a little mystery? Jingwan burst out laughing. After reading the letters on the surface, Li Hongyuan taught Jingwan to read the letters that were hidden. However, when she opened the first letter, Jingwan's heart couldn't help but tremble. These were privately manufactured weapons, and the number was not tens of thousands but hundreds of thousands. Even if it was just a small fraction, if the emperor knew about it, no matter how much he doted on this son of his, he would most likely kill him. What kind of pirate ship did she get herself into? What was this? There was no way out. They used to say that they would part without hard feelings, but this time they didn't part without hard feelings. Isn't this a little too much? Even if he wanted to force the emperor to abdicate, he didn't need so many weapons. The border of Qi Yuan is not stable. So, this was not prepared for his great cause at all. Jingwan understood, but she was even more puzzled. Even if it's a war, you don't have to take such a risk to manufacture these weapons. As an emperor, you don't have to joke about your country, right? The Bureau of Military Weapons of the Ministry of Works is not just for show. Wan, there are some things that you don't understand. Even if he is in a high position, he will not hesitate to sacrifice millions of lives for his own secrets or selfish desires. This matter is a little bloody and disgusting, so I won't tell you in detail. If there were no accidents, there would be a war in Qi Yuan next year. If he didn't intervene, the commander-in-chief would definitely be Fu Yunting. In order to destroy the Fu family, 200,000 to 300,000 soldiers would die in humiliation. Li Hongyuan didn't want to change the commander-in-chief, but he definitely wouldn't sit back and do nothing about other things. Moreover, many things had changed greatly, showing a completely different path of development. The incident at the western border did not happen, and the uprising after the flood in the south was also secretly extinguished by him. During this period of time in his previous life, although other countries did not invade the Qi Yuan, they were constantly harassed. For example, the northern Xiongnu, which had already been defeated, invaded, and robbed. It was very annoying and they suffered heavy losses. Then there were the western Xiongnu, the former Wei, the southern Qi, and other powerful countries who were eyeing the Qi Yuan covetously. They constantly launched probing attacks. There were also some small countries who jumped up and down. Although it was unknown why they did not take advantage of the internal strife in the Qi Yuan to launch a large-scale attack. On the other hand, in this life it seemed that a great crisis had been eliminated, but it made someone even more nervous. Especially after the snow disaster in the north last year, the northern Xiongnu and other places suffered heavy losses, and they did not receive supplies from Qi Yuan in advance. The danger of being exterminated might make them desperate, and this war might be brought forward. Li Hongyuan received news that there were already signs of it. Chapter 261. Li Hongyuan propped up his chin and leaned lazily on the arhat bed in the main seat. The jade table in the middle was slightly moved away. His whole person was originally extremely undignified, just like a rich playboy. However, there was a sense of nobility and laziness. Coupled with that face, people couldn't help blushing and their hearts beating faster. For example, although the person brought by Prince Kong was leaning in Prince Kang's arms, his eyes were unusually wanton with excitement. In the depths of his eyes, there was even a hint of a wolf's desire to plunder. Naturally, there was also infinite teasing. However, this was completely useless to Li Hongyuan. He was still careless and arrogant, making people gnash their teeth and want to beat him to death. He held a strand of hair between his fingers and stroked it intermittently. So what? It's just a plaything. I can have as many as I want. I can sleep with one and throw one away. You can only pick up these junk to play with. Li Hongyi, you're really getting worse and worse. At this time, you actually have the leisure to come to this prince. No wonder you're far from Li Hongming's opponent. What do you think the Empress will do if she knows about this? Prince Kang's face was obviously a little stiff, and naturally, there was also a monstrous anger. After being said by Li Hongyuan, the beauty in his arms seemed to have lost her charm. He pushed her away. Imperial Mother won't care about this kind of trivial matter. Li Hongyuan sneered and didn't comment. What's so funny? Even if he wanted to restrain his anger, he still couldn't do it at this time. This prince heard that the Empress has been very good to 9th Imperial Brother recently. Li Hongyuan said leisurely. Imperial Mother treats everyone equally. Li Hongyuan chuckled, but it was more infuriating than an obvious sneer. Saying that you're stupid is tarnishing the word stupid. For a hopelessly stupid and disobedient heir, it's better to replace him with someone who is a little smarter and absolutely obedient. More importantly, after he succeeds, he will be deeply grateful to her. It won't affect her position at all. Why not? In fact, the Empress did it quite obviously, and there were quite a lot of people who noticed it. However, in the eyes of discerning people, the Empress was just trying to wear Prince Kong down, to make him a bit more dangerous, and at the same time to make him a bit smarter. But, as the person involved, if he didn't realize this with his brain, he would most likely think that the Empress really wanted to replace him. Even if someone explained it to him, he probably wouldn't be able to stop his suspicions. From Li Hongyuan's point of view, it was worth pondering whether the Empress was really trying to torture him or whether she really wanted to replace him. For an overly ambitious woman, it didn't matter if her son became the emperor or not. What she wanted was to have absolute control while she was alive. After she died, her honor would not be shaken. No matter how stupid Prince Kong was, he could understand what Li Hongyuan meant. His pupils shrank sharply, and he looked incredulous. Like an enraged beast, he rushed forward crazily, as if he wanted to wring Li Hongyuan's neck. "What did you say, you bastard? Say it again if you have the guts." Without Li Hongyuan's instructions, and the others didn't move. The result is the same every time, but he keeps coming to me tirelessly again and again. Wan was right, this kind of person is a masochist. It's really annoying. Li Hongyuan said softly as if he was murmuring. He didn't seem to have any reaction, but when Prince Kong approached, he suddenly stood up and brazenly kicked. With just one kick, Prince Kong flew back more than 10 feet. He put down his foot and stood upright. His clothes didn't move, and his hair wasn't messed up. Prince Kong was on his way to the south to provide relief. Along the way, he encountered many accidents and was seriously injured. Although the injury wasn't as serious as expected, it wasn't as good as he appeared to be. Li Hongyuan's kick was actually merciful. Even so, Prince Kong still vomited blood. As a result, his guards were so shocked that their souls almost flew out. Your Highness, Your Highness. Tisk, what's the use of getting angry at me? Use your ability to go back and find the Empress. How long has it been since the Empress paid attention to you? Isn't this the best proof? Prince Kong put his hand on his chest. Li Hongyuan, how about it? Fight back? Do you have the ability to do that? Or with your group of guards? Although I can't kill you, if I kill them, it'll just dirty the place a little. His attitude was like crushing ants instead of deciding people's life and death. I don't believe that Imperial Father will still side with you unconditionally this time. Prince Kong couldn't help coughing twice. Li Hongyuan raised a mocking smile. The last time I beat you in Duke Dinggua's mansion was about the same time as this time, right? Prince Kang's face suddenly turned livid. How could he forget that every year at this time, his Imperial Father would be strange? His protection of Li Hongyuan was even more unconditional. Unless Li Hongyuan wanted his life, his Imperial Father wouldn't uphold justice for him even if he lost half his life, let alone a kick. In a fit of anger, Prince Kong spat out another mouthful of blood and fainted directly. You're really fragile, Li Hongyuan said coldly. Come, throw them out for me. However, he was a prince after all. Li Hongyuan's men couldn't use force on him. However, at this time, Prince Kang's men were clever. They didn't dare to say anything and hurriedly left with Prince Kong. In the end, only the woman and her 2 maids were left. Prince Kang's men couldn't take care of them at this time. Your Highness is really a man of temperament. This little girl really admires you. Just now, she was implicated by Prince Kong and humiliated by Li Hongyuan, but she didn't see any shame or anger. Now, she was still presumptuous and bold. Many men wanted to conquer this kind of woman, and she was quite confident in her charm. Now, she also wanted to conquer this man. Even if he had no power or influence, he was handsome and valiant, and had a fatal attraction. If she slept with him, the taste would be especially wonderful. Her body seemed to be trembling a little. However, when Li Hongyuan looked at her, it was almost the same as looking at Prince Kong. He had seen this woman's self-righteousness in his previous life. She thought that as long as she took a fancy to a man, he would eventually become a subject under her skirt. She was exactly the same as Ruan Fangfei, but compared to Ruan Fangfei, her mind was incomparably clear, and at the same time she was more conceited. However, Li Hongyuan didn't have the slightest interest in this kind of woman, even before he met Jingwan in his previous life, let alone now. If it wasn't for the need of the plan, Li Hongyuan would have taken her life now. However, in his previous life, he could still exchange blows with her. Now, in Li Hongyuan's eyes, she was really too immature. Do you need this prince to say the same words twice? That woman still didn't understand. But and the others were so shocked that they broke out in a cold sweat. Without saying anything, they grabbed that woman and her 2 servant girls and directly dragged them out. It wasn't an ordinary kind of violence, let alone any kind of tenderness for the fairer sex. It was clearly the first time she had encountered such a situation. While she felt that it was inconceivable, she subconsciously wanted to resist, but she restrained herself in the blink of an eye. She was very clear that if she moved now, she would probably die without a burial place. Confident and bold, in the blink of an eye, she became delicate and pitiful. She looked at Li Hongyuan with tears on her face, as if she was looking at a peerless, heartless man. On the other hand, Li Hongyuan looked at her with interest. Fingernails, earrings, hairpins, and perhaps even the sachet on her body. She really did have a lot of hidden poisons. Of course, the throat-sealing poison was just a joke, but there were definitely drugs that could kill people within 2 hours, not to mention knockout drugs. Speaking of which, Li Hongyuan's courage wasn't small. He dared to be intimate with this kind of snake and scorpion. That woman was a bit unable to maintain her expression. Although before entering Qiyuan, she already knew that this man was arrogant, unbridled, and had no regard for anyone else. There was also a prerequisite for him to have tender feelings for the fairer sex. Ruthlessly destroying flowers was not uncommon, but she didn't expect that she would also be defeated. In addition, she kept feeling that something was wrong. Why was a person like him only an idle prince? Before she saw him in person, although she was puzzled, she only wanted to know the reason. After seeing him, she was even more puzzled. How could this kind of man be willing to be under someone else? Without waiting for orders, the servants quickly cleaned the floor. Jingwan walked out from the back hall, separated by a screen, and looked outside thoughtfully. Li Hongyuan pulled her over to sit beside him. Shouldn't Wan only have eyes for this prince? Jingwan was a bit speechless. This man was too clingy. Is it really okay to treat Prince Kong like this? Imperial Father's mind is not clear these few days every year. I'm also his son. As long as I don't kill other people, even if I poke a hole in the sky, he will help me. This is a small problem, so there's no need to worry about it. Jingwan was slightly startled. Then she thought of a possibility. If a person's mind was abnormal at the same time every year, it must be abnormal at this time. Moreover, it was related to this man in front of her. It seemed that other than his birth mother, it couldn't be anyone else. However, this was not the main point of her concern. Is Yuan's birthday coming soon? However, that man, Lu Qingdi, was also too much. He was the one who caused this situation. After so many years, he still looked like he was deeply in love and didn't regret it. In Jingwan's eyes, he was just putting on an act. Just these few days, she didn't see him sleeping with fewer women and having fewer children. When the imperial noble consort was alive, she talked about how much she liked him and how deeply she loved him. She only slept with him a few more nights every month. What the hell was that? He was the one who felt guilty and wanted to make it up to his son. He was also the one who took his anger out on his son and ignored him. There was really no one more disgusting than this. However, Li Hongyuan was a bit strange. He looked at her quietly. After a moment, he suddenly smiled. The day after tomorrow. He praised his wife's sharp intelligence. 12th of March? It will be a good day. The 15th of March was Great Elder Princess's birthday. It was grand last year, and it was said that it was held every year. She was just the emperor's sister. As the emperor's favorite son, he didn't tell anyone about it. None of his other sons or daughters-in-law kept a low profile. However, he was the only one who kept a low profile. Not to mention celebrating his birthday, few people would remember it. Jingwan took the initiative to hug him. I'll celebrate it with you in the future. Li Hongyuan chuckled. In fact, he only cared about it when he was young. Not to mention now, even in his previous life, when he became the emperor and his birthday became the emperor's birthday, he didn't care about it. After all these years, he was 10 years old again. If imperial noble consort Su hadn't prepared a table of food for him every year, he probably would have completely forgotten about it. However, in his eyes, imperial noble consort Su was simply meddlesome. No matter whether she was acting for others or sincere, he felt sorry for her. However, his wife's heart ached for him and she pitied him. In comparison, he felt very comfortable. He rested his chin on Jingwan's shoulder and put his lips close to her ear. Then, Wan, you should prepare a birthday gift for me. His warm breath brushed her ear, making it a little itchy. Jingwan subconsciously tilted her head. What do you want? You don't seem to lack anything. Besides, I'm not good at needlework or cooking. I don't need those. I just want you. Jingwan couldn't help blushing. Even though they were married, Jingwan still couldn't get used to his teasing and wanted to avoid it. What's wrong? Wan, are you unwilling? Li Hongyuan kissed her earlobe. I'm yours. There's no need to treat it as a birthday gift. Although it was true, in Li Hongyuan's ears, it was like the most beautiful words of love. He was very happy both physically and mentally. This is Wan's own words. It's mine. So, it's natural for me to do what I want, right? Jingwan belatedly realized that yours was simply an invitation. She pushed him away with some anger and shame. Enough. Don't look for trouble in broad daylight. Sure enough, a woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. Wan said to turn hostile and turned hostile. Too heartless. Jingwan was angry. She really couldn't take advantage of this man. Our Jin Qinhuang's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. Who can compare to you? No matter what it is, it's yours. Including the shell that contains it, it's also yours. Wan, you said it's mine. I'm also yours. Li Hongyuan shamelessly rubbed against her again. Speaking of which, how could this man be so clingy? Also, it's very hot. Can't you move away a bit? What's with that woman just now? Yuan, your attitude seems a bit strange. Knowing that she was changing the topic, Li Hongyuan also followed along with her words. Didn't Wan not want me to casually kill people? Then I can only drive her away. What's strange about it? In fact, it's Wan who is jealous. It doesn't matter if you admit it. I just like to see your jealous appearance. It must be very seductive. If she wanted to change the topic, she had to see if he agreed. In the matter of, unless it was a young and inexperienced man who went to a brothel for the first time, men naturally had the advantage. Even if Jingwan's face gradually became thicker, she was absolutely not Li Hongyuan's opponent. Don't try to muddle through. In the end, who wants to muddle through? Li Hongyuan rubbed against Jingwan's body, making her have no time to think about other things. In fact, Jingwan really wasn't his opponent. Thinking about it, there didn't seem to be anything special about that woman. On the other hand, those three people, when they said they were thrown out, they acted as if they were thrown out and threw them outside of the manor. Originally, they wanted to repeat the old trick, saying that this little girl's body was delicate and it was difficult for her to travel long distances. So could he prepare a carriage for her to return to the capital? Unfortunately, like master, like subordinate, they had trained their faces to be absolutely expressionless. How cold and ruthless was he to turn around and leave? One master, two servants, three delicate women really had no other choice but to brace themselves and slowly walk towards the capital. Perhaps they would meet a kind person returning to the capital who could give them a ride. Their feet slowly moved forward, looking somewhat embarrassed. Only when they got closer would they discover that it wasn't the case at all. Let people carefully investigate Jin Qinhuang. I keep feeling that there's a problem with him. Yes, master. Even though they were treated very ruthlessly, their hearts were angry and unreconciled. However, their hearts were even more excited. It must be known that this kind of prey would give them a sense of accomplishment. Bit by bit, they would be swallowed like a whale. Thinking about that process, it was extremely wonderful. That kind of thing that could be obtained with a wave of the hand. They had long been tired of it. Only they thought that they were hunters. How would they know that they had long been targeted and even knew the details of the prey? They felt good about themselves, thinking that everything was under their control. Who would have thought that they were actually being treated as jumping clowns? That hunter looked on indifferently from the sidelines. They didn't know if they were lucky or if people like them were destined to be targeted. Several young masters who went out of the city to hunt and play, after seeing them, offered to help. And among these people, there was one with the surname Cui, who came from Marquis Chongping Fu. Compared to Li Hongyuan's unmanly conduct, these people were too manly. However, a woman who could play with men in the palm of her hand, with a sweet smile, captivated these people. In many people's eyes, although Li Hongyuan liked beauty, he had never been bewitched by beauty. Clearly showed that he was playing with women. No woman could do anything to him. He was affectionate and ruthless. It was just that he had seen too much. And those women who threw themselves at him always thought that they could become the most special one, the one who could make him turn back. If he carried this kind of thinking, it would only make the road of withered bones and beauties under his feet thicker. That was all. The next day, the people who were invited came together and arrived together. And Jingwan found out that the number of people who were invited far exceeded her expectations. In other words, there were a lot of people who came uninvited. It wasn't just the unmarried sisters of the Luo family. Her brothers and sisters-in-law, as well as her younger brothers, were all packed up. Among her close friends, Yuan Xiaoqiao was single, but Zhou Yingshuang brought her husband. It was a bit of a headache. However, their arrival made Jingwan very happy. Naturally, there were some people who were unhappy. Li Hongyuan just felt that his wife was a little lonely. Although he was her husband, he could not occupy all of her feelings. She still had relatives and friends who wanted her to be well and happy, so he suppressed his crazy possessiveness. However, when she was really occupied by other people, he could not stop his anger and wanted to kill. Li Hongyuan felt that he needed to find something to do and cool down. So, he led people through the manor and entered the forest from the other side of the manor. If he could not kill, he would find something to kill. At first, the people who were invited were a little reserved. After all, this was the manor of the King of Hell. Basically, no one had come here before. It was just that they could see the beautiful scenery here from other manors and higher places. They didn't want to set foot in here one day. But the deterrence of the living King of Hell was too great. Chapter 262. After waiting for a long time, they did not see any trace of the living King of Hell. They did not know where he went. Gradually, everyone completely forgot about him and happily played. Even the little ones, who were only a few years old, also ran around. The manor was much, much bigger than their home. They could play as they pleased. They could have Wang Fei Jejie to support them and no one would care. They were simply too happy. As for Jingwan, because there were more people accompanying her, she wore simple clothes and accidentally played like crazy. Even Sun Yijia, a top-notch lady who had been raised by the strictest rules and dogma since childhood, also followed her into the water and up the trees. She was already a mother, so she threw her daughter to her daughter's father. That's right, it was the father, not the wet nurse, and then she played like a child. After the initial astonishment and helplessness, Luo Jinghua could only shrug his shoulders and express his acceptance. In any case, the wife who had the support of his younger sister had already climbed above his head. He estimated that he would not have the chance to turn things around in this lifetime. Forget it, he originally did not plan to do anything. It was rare for her to be so happy. Moreover, Jin Qinhuang could tolerate his younger sister's antics. Luo Jinghua's action of holding his daughter was also quite skillful. It was just that he was a little worried now. Could his own daughter still be raised to be a qualified lady? But seeing his daughter's small body, forget it. It was too early to think about it. Sunny Jiao was like this. Not to mention Yuan Xiaoqiao, who was a little crazy. The result of too much fun was that they were exhausted. Therefore, Jingwan let people arrange their respective accommodations. Dinner was also sent separately. Especially for the group of little ones, she instructed their wet nurses and servant maids to give them a hot bath and make sure to drink a dose of medicine to prevent the cold. She would send people to prepare it. After finishing these things, Jingwan belatedly realized that it seemed that she had completely forgotten about her husband. She had not seen him all this time. She felt a little guilty. Returning to the main courtyard of the manor, she saw Mu Gonggong. That was to say, he was in the main courtyard. Muan, where is Wang Ye? Mu Gonggong looked at Jingwan a little timidly. That what Master's mood was not very good. Answering Wang Fei, Master went to the hot spring pool. Hot spring pool? Wasn't that a hot spring? There was actually a hot spring in this manor. However, when he thought about it, it did not seem strange. However, there was no hot spring in the main courtyard, and he didn't even bring it in. This didn't seem to be in line with a certain someone's style. Where is it? She didn't notice Eunuch Mu's strange expression until she asked. What's wrong? What happened? No, it's fine. Eunuch Mu quivered. Shall I take you there? Jingwan pondered for a moment, nodded, and ordered the maid to prepare the clothes. Although it was the main courtyard, there was no real wall skirt. Every 5 steps there was a corridor, and every 10 steps there was a scenery. After walking around for a while, Jingwan saw another scenery behind the main courtyard. This place was in a special location, so she could only come here through the main courtyard. Since she came here yesterday, she hadn't walked around the back. No wonder she didn't know. This hot spring pool was very characteristic of her previous life. It was built in the open air, beside which there was a real mountain. Then there were all kinds of rugged rocks as rockery, which set off each other as if they were naturally piled up. Such a pattern complemented the whole. To be honest, compared with the square pool in the room, it lacked the artistic conception, which was naturally more in line with Jingwan's idea. More importantly, there were glazed lamps installed in many places. At this time, candles had been lit inside, just like the wall lamps embedded in the stone wall and the ground. Although the light was not very bright, the atmosphere was full. Because they had experienced the civilization of the sleepless city, this place looked a little peaceful at first glance. However, this feeling disappeared quickly, and they only felt it was natural. Princess Master should be behind the rockery. I won't go there. Hearing Eunuch Mu's words, the maid stopped quite consciously and didn't move forward. Mu and did His Highness ask you to stay in the front courtyard? Jingwan asked thoughtfully. Your Highness, Master doesn't need me to serve him, so I'm in the front courtyard. As a good lackey, he naturally knew how to figure out his master's meaning. Although he couldn't see anything under normal circumstances, his master had made it so obvious. If he still didn't get it, he could get out of here. However, he couldn't help complaining in his heart. If you miss the princess, just say it. If you want the princess to go there, just say it. Why do you have to let these people bear your low pressure? Even if master doesn't need to be served, you can also wait here instead of going to the front. Jingwan felt that she might have found something interesting. Her husband was probably a little arrogant. Jingwan smiled ambiguously, which made the others a little confused. Jingwan walked forward alone. She crossed a small wooden bridge and went around 2 artificial mountains. Then, she saw Li Hongyuan soaking in the misty water. From Jingwan's angle, she was behind him. Her fine black hair hung loosely, with some sticking to the side of her face. It flowed down, brushed against her shoulders, and drooped in the water, spreading out under the surface of the water. That scene was really quite seductive. Perhaps for convenience, there was a relatively smooth stone on the side of his hand, on which wine was placed. Although it was only a small bottle as high as a palm, there was a lot of wine. There were 5 or 6 bottles on the ground, which meant that he drank at least 5 or 6 bottles. Jingwan frowned. Ah, Yuan? Li Hongyuan didn't respond, as if he was drunk and his nerves were dull. However, his actions of pouring wine were very smooth. Could be seen that he didn't really drink too much. Then, Jingwan inexplicably felt a kind of, I'm unhappy. I'm very angry. Hurry up and coax me, aura from him. She didn't know if it should be called intuition, but Jingwan felt that way. She smiled silently. Just as she was about to step forward, she stepped on something. She looked down and saw that it was his clothes. When she saw him, she was so focused on him that she didn't notice it. However, in the next moment, Jingwan's eyes narrowed. There was a patch of red on his pure white underwear. The first thing she thought of was blood. She hurried forward, not caring about what she was wearing, and directly stepped into the pool. Ayuan, you're injured? Where are you hurt? How can you soak in the water when you're injured? As she asked, she checked, as if she was afraid of touching his injury, and didn't dare to touch him. Li Hongyuan, who originally wanted to leave her hanging, couldn't ignore her when he saw her so anxious. He held her hand. I'm fine, it's not my blood. No matter how inconsiderate you are, you won't be soaking in the hot spring when you're injured. Jingwan breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she was also worried. Thinking about Mu, and she knew that his master was really injured and his clothes were dyed red. It was impossible that he didn't have any reaction. Moreover, he must have come looking for her. What did you do today? There's a lot of blood on your clothes. If it was before last night, Jingwan would be concerned about his injury and wouldn't ask him what he did. Now, she asked this question naturally. Li Hongyuan let go of her hand and looked at her coldly. Don't you only have other people in your heart? Why do you care about me? Oh my. She was really angry just because he ignored her for half a day. Jingwan grinned and went up to him. I'm sorry. I know I'm wrong. Li Hongyuan's face was still cold. I'm not happy was written on the left side of his face, and hurry up and coax me was written on the right side of his face. Jingwan couldn't help but kiss him twice, but he was still indifferent. Jingwan continued to coax him, but it still didn't work. Then, Jingwan retreated and went up to the shore. This time, a certain someone's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. He crushed the wine glass in his hand, but he didn't pull Jingwan back. Jingwan was a little scared. He looked really angry and had a premonition that she might be in trouble tonight. So, should she run away now? However, she was just preparing to take off her clothes. If she ran away, she might bend over on the bed later. Moreover, a man with a little psychological problem was already scary when his illness acted up. If she ran away, would it worsen his illness? She could already feel that he had an unusual possessiveness. Perhaps he had completely darkened and isolated himself from the world. The more she looked at him, the more she felt that this man was definitely capable of doing such things. Jingwan looked at his side profile. She felt a little helpless and a little amused, but the expression on her face was indescribably soft. She took off her hair bun, leaving only the front part to simply fix on the top of her head. She took off her clothes, leaving her abnormally close-fitting doo-doo and underwear. She took off her shoes and slid into the water again. At that moment, she could clearly see that a certain someone's face was much better. Really, he was so thick-skinned before marriage and dared to say anything, but now it was as if he had changed. Jingwan's whole body sank into the water. Her hands and feet slid to the middle of the pool. When she reached the position right in front of a certain someone, she turned around to face Li Hongyuan and suddenly broke out of the water. Speaking of which, in order to coax him, she even wet herself and seduced him. She was really becoming more and more shameless. In the future, she might become more and more shameless. However, Jingwan achieved the effect she wanted. After all, a certain someone who ignored her was now staring straight at her. His eyes were like a mass of thick ink that could not be dissolved, but at the same time, they were surprisingly bright. She only felt that all the blood in her body was rushing to her lower body, making a fierce beast want to break out of the door. In fact, Li Hongyuan was indeed possessive. However, his essential purpose was to make Jingwan take the initiative to cede territory and compensate. For other things, to him, he might find it more fun to rob her. As for Jingwan, seeing her deliver herself to him made him more excited. However, she was a woman after all. Knowing that she was thin-skinned, Li Hongyuan did not intend to go too far. However, reality gave him an unexpected surprise. In this way, he did not have to restrain himself too much in the future. If Jingwan knew that her tears in the future were all water that went into her brain at this moment, she did not know how she would feel. Although she was already mentally prepared, when she really did it in the open, the degree of embarrassment still increased. Often, because of the tension, the degree of excitement would also increase. The dinner became a very, very late snack. When Jingwan was about to fall asleep, she suddenly remembered that her clothes were covered with blood. I went hunting. I encountered a big insect, so I killed it, Li Hongyuan said casually. Jingwan's heart was beating rapidly when she heard that. She was covered with blood. She knew that it was not killed by a long-range arrow. It was the result of a close combat. Hey, that was a tiger, the king of animals, not a cat. Don't do such a dangerous thing in the future. Don't worry, it's just a big insect. I will be fine. Or Wan, do you not believe in your husband? Worry and trust can coexist. Even if there is absolute trust, as long as you care about it, you will still be worried. Seeing Jingwan's serious face, Li Hongyuan could not help but kiss her. Okay? I promise you, I will not take risks easily in the future. Jingwan's lips moved a little. Originally, She did not want him to take any risks. But thinking that what he was doing now was very dangerous, and there was no possibility of stopping, he could only continue to do it without hesitation. By the way, why is there a big insect in the forest nearby? In fact, there were a lot of imperial plantation nearby, and the hidden dangers should have been eliminated long ago. It probably came out from the depths of the forest. In fact, the place where they went out was also relatively deep. Because there were still people in the plantation, Jingwan did not get up late even though she did not have enough sleep. After eating and drinking, the beast's mood was a lot better. Seeing that these people were not so annoying, it did not want to go out to hunt again. It called Lu Luo and Jinghua, 3 relatively older brothers, and prepared to talk about poetry and life. Well, this was all nonsense. In these aspects, even if Li Hongyuan knew how to, he did not have the leisure to do it. In the pavilion high up, Luo Jingde and Li Hongyuan sat opposite each other. On the table was a chessboard. Luo Jingming and Ling Jinghua were watching the game on both sides. Probably because Li Hongyuan restrained his dangerous aura and appeared to be more peaceful. Plus he was good to Jingwan. They did not have much fear of him. However, as time went by, whether it was Luo Jingde who was playing chess, or the 2 people who were watching the game, they were faintly sweating. It was too scary. Being called the useless Prince Jean, his chess skills were so terrifying that it made people tremble with fear. On the other hand, looking at Li Hongyuan, he was calm and relaxed. He placed his chess pieces casually, and his rhythm was neither fast nor slow. But he kept playing the same way Luo Jingde did. He did not even look at the chessboard seriously, let alone think for a long time. Not sure if it was because he was in a good mood, he would occasionally give some advice. Luo Jingde listened attentively. There were 3 consecutive games, and each game took a long time. Of course, 99% of the time, Luo Jingde was thinking. Speaking of which, Luo Jingming's chess skills were slightly better than Luo Jingde's. But there was no difference under Li Hongyuan. However, it was said that watching a game of chess was like watching a person. Especially under someone like Li Hongyuan, he would definitely go all out. It was impossible for him to hide anything, and some things were directly exposed. Among the 3 brothers, Luo Jingming was born of a concubine, so it was inevitable that he felt inferior. But there was also a deeper desire to win, as well as a sharpness that he had never shown before. "Has your marriage been decided?" Li Hongyuan suddenly asked. Luo Jingde was stunned. He did not know why Prince Jean suddenly mentioned this, but he answered honestly, "It has been decided. She is the daughter of a concubine of the Honglu Temple." The Honglu Temple? He seems to have a legitimate daughter. Later I will ask him to change. Not to mention Luo Jingming. Even the 2 brothers were shocked. "Your Highness, this seems a bit inappropriate." Luo Jingming braced himself and said. Li Hongyuan looked up at him and said ambiguously, "Do you think I will act rashly?" Luo Jingming hurriedly denied. In fact, that was his first thought. This was probably caused by the officials. In fact, from some clues, it could be seen that Prince Jean was not the same as the rumors. "I will ask the Honglu Temple to change, and others will not say anything." The Honglu Temple was a 3rd-rank official. To be honest, although Luo Jingming was Luo Peishan's grandson, his father was nothing. He was also a concubine's son. Even if many people thought highly of him, the legitimate daughter of a 3rd-rank official would definitely not be interested in him. A concubine's daughter was just right, but Li Hongyuan's words changed everything. It was really a bit. Luo Jingming had only met the lady in question once. He did not feel anything special about her because everyone in his family thought that she was not bad. Although there were better candidates, Luo Jingming naturally nodded and agreed because she was not eye-catching. If a man could change to a wife of a higher status unless he already had someone in his heart, he would not reject it. He just did not know what Prince Jean would do. Luo Jingde glanced at him. It was true. Luo Jingde's wife's birth was nobler than his own wife's. He didn't think much about it, but he didn't know if his wife would think too much. It seemed that he had to have a good talk with her later. The Luo family was still in a delicate situation. They could not let the inner residents be at odds. Chapter 263. No one asked why Jin Qinhuang wanted to change people. No matter what his purpose was, once he decided, no one would change his mind. What they had to do was to remain silent, pretend that they didn't know, and let things take its course. Even though Luo Jingming had encountered the matter of losing his temper at the last moment, it didn't have any effect on him. He still went all out to play against Li Hongyuan, even if the result would still be a miserable loss. The age difference between Li Hongyuan and them was only a few years, but in Li Hongyuan's eyes they were really immature. However, he also knew that he was an old monster in his heart, so he naturally wouldn't use his own standards to measure them. When he was in a good mood, he would give a few pointers as if he was a younger generation, but when he was in a bad mood, he would naturally ignore them. The three brothers of the Luo family weren't very conspicuous among the young masters of the capital, but they weren't so low-key that no one knew about them. Of course, this was the situation in the past. Now, who didn't know about the third young master of the Luo family, Luo Jinghua? As a result, the other two were also known by more people. For the Luo family to produce a third young master, wouldn't the other two be far more outstanding than imagined? In fact, it was indeed so. Under Luo Peishan's meticulous training, they far exceeded other people's understanding. It was only because of necessity that they hid most of their brilliance, that's all. After another 3 games, they changed people again. Facing this brother-in-law of his, Li Hongyuan was even more impolite. It was only because his current reputation was obtained by relying on his wife that it would be strange if he felt refreshed in his heart. Thus, almost immediately, he completely suppressed Luo Jinghua. In the end, he didn't even leave a single piece of armor behind. The time he used wasn't even half of the time it took to play the previous game. This also allowed them to see that Li Hongyuan had already been merciful just now. Even though there was no change in his expression and attitude, Luo Jinghua inexplicably felt a murderous aura. His scalp couldn't help but feel numb. What did he do to make this brother-in-law angry? Even if the other party was his brother-in-law, he couldn't be unyielding. The 3rd round ended. She thought that it would be the same as before, but someone tapped on the chessboard, indicating that they should continue. Luo Jinghua expressed the bitterness in his heart, but no one said anything. It seemed that the only person who could save his life was his sister. He subconsciously turned his head and looked down. Well, there were quite a lot of people who saw it, but he didn't see where his sister was. Li Hongyuan crushed Luo Jinghua for a few more rounds. Perhaps he was feeling better physically and mentally, so he wasn't so ruthless anymore. At this time, the game was no longer the main goal. What Li Hongyuan said was the most important thing. At first, the 3 of them didn't realize anything, but as time went by, their nerves gradually tightened. After the initial shock, they suppressed their wildly beating hearts and listened carefully to every word he said. From the beginning to the end, Li Hongyuan was the one who controlled the pace. He maintained his initial casual attitude, but the 3 people's views of him had undergone a drastic change. If this man was called a good-for-nothing, then they were simply trash among trash. There was probably no one else in the world who could compare to him. They couldn't help but compare him with their grandfather. In the end, they didn't even feel this much pressure when facing their grandfather, who was the most serious of them all. This man was really too scary, and he hid it so deeply. Was it possible to say that he didn't have any ambition and wouldn't do anything? Moreover, no matter how many other princes ascended the throne, they wouldn't tolerate him. It was even more impossible for him to sit and wait for death. He cut off his own escape route, which was a clear indication of his strength and self-confidence. The 3 brothers looked at each other and saw the understanding in each other's eyes. But they didn't say anything. They maintained their silence once again. This kind of thing, it was enough to keep it to themselves. They absolutely couldn't show it, not even to the person who slept next to them. It wasn't that they didn't believe him, but if there was a chance, the implications would be too great. They didn't know how many people would be lost. Li Hongyuan glanced at them indifferently. I'm just letting you know. Other than that, nothing will change and you don't need to do anything. You just need to remember that you are Wan's elder brother. Become a qualified member of her maternal family and don't let her lose face. It was easy to say, but the pressure in their hearts couldn't be said to be small. They used to think that they would only have a younger sister who was a princess consort. Looking at the situation now, It was very likely that they would have a younger sister who was an empress in the future. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. It was easy to be an idle prince's in-laws, but it wasn't so easy to be an emperor's in-laws. Wait, they seemed to have misunderstood a little. It was a qualified member of the maternal family, but not a qualified member of the in-laws. There was a fundamental difference between the two. The former was the family's grandaunt, while the latter was the son-in-law. What did this mean? They originally thought that their family was still neutral, but they didn't expect that they had unknowingly been deeply involved in the vortex of fighting for the throne. There was another point. Did their grandfather know about this situation? Most likely he knew. The three brothers became more and more silent as they listened to Li Hongyuan calmly analyze the current situation for them. As he said, they didn't need to do anything. What he said was just to help them broaden their horizons. That was all. Later, even though they tried their best to remain calm, as the people closest to them, they still noticed that something was wrong. What's wrong? Nothing, don't ask anything. Jingwan didn't hold back and directly asked Li Hongyuan. What did I Yuan say to my brothers? What does Wan think I said? Li Hongyuan asked calmly. Right now, they are essentially trash. They can't do anything. What can I say to them? Although she knew that he didn't mean trash, literally, Jingwan couldn't help but pat him. Even if this is the truth, please don't say it directly, Prince. What's the difference between what Wan said? Wan, only you are allowed to set fires, but your husband is not allowed to light the lamps? Jingwan only wanted to roll her eyes at him, but didn't continue to ask. She could basically guess the general content. She just hoped that her brothers wouldn't be too badly hit. This man's nature was already beyond the scope of a normal person. If they were compared to him, they would probably die of despair. As the saying goes, if others were better than you, you would be envious and jealous. But if the gap was too big, then there would only be longing and admiration left. The three brothers of the Luo family had already jumped to the end without experiencing the earlier stages. Sister-in-law told me that the doctor has already gone to the Luo family. Fourth sister's condition has already stabilized and won't worsen. Perhaps it's because third aunt has been taking care of her day and night. It made her feel that she has the will to live and should wake up soon. But it's possible that before she wakes up, she will have to be sent to the country residence. Prince Rue is pressing very hard. Not many people in the Luo family knew about Luo Jingying. The main thing was that the masters were well aware of it. The Luo manor wasn't an iron bucket. Because the Luo family didn't have any secrets, they weren't that strict with the servants. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't say anything outside. It was very easy for outsiders to inquire about something because even if the servants didn't know the key information, they would be able to obtain the information they wanted from their words. From this point of view, Luo Jingying had to be sent away as soon as possible. It's a small matter, there's no need to worry about it. Li Hongming doesn't have the time to find trouble with the Luo family. He can't even protect himself right now. What did Yuan do? Jingwan was curious. He just made some trouble for his subordinates, that's all. Don't talk about asking for benefits from your grandfather. I made him suffer a double loss and used the benefits to ask your grandfather for help. Your Highness is really a good younger brother. You're ruthless enough. If noble consort Su finds out, she will be sad. Jingwan smiled. When she finds out, it's just that the affection on the surface is gone. At that time, perhaps the dust will settle. At that time, I wonder if she will regret raising such a white-eyed wolf like you. Jingwan smiled even more happily. She will. It's not the first time I've schemed against them. No matter who knows the truth, they will want to chop me into pieces and feed them to the dogs. She will probably be angry that she wasn't ruthless enough in the past. Your Highness, it's really a bit sad to be your brother. As for noble consort Su, Jingwan didn't mention it again. And they were born at the wrong time. If it was another time, perhaps one or two of them could become emperors. Li Hongyuan said lightly, but his words were extremely conceited. Or I can be merciful and help one of them to become a puppet, and I can be the uncrowned king? What does Wan think? Not very good. Others desperately want to snatch it, but you treat it as a plaything and have the final say. To be honest, Jingwan wanted to slap him. It was no wonder that so many people hated him so much. Li Hongyuan smiled but didn't say anything. In his opinion, Jingwan probably thought that he was joking. He really thought so. Anyway, he had already sat in that position, and now he didn't have any obsession. He just wanted power, and power didn't necessarily mean that he had to sit in that position. As long as Qi Yuan was under his control, no one could make waves. And his Wan, even if she didn't wear a phoenix robe, was the most honorable woman in the world. Even the empress had to bow to her. Just thinking about it made him feel even more refreshed. Luo Jinghua and the others originally wanted to leave the next day. Some things had a bit of an impact and they needed to go back and digest it. Jingwan wanted them to stay for one more day. Even if Yuan's birthday couldn't be celebrated openly, Jingwan didn't want it to be too quiet. At this time, there was no need to say anything. The husband and wife had a tacit understanding. As for the 3 Luo brothers who were the first to resign, he only said 3 words: "You think too much." Thus everyone stayed behind. No matter what other people thought, Jingwan ordered the people in the manor to prepare a banquet. Because it was too formal, it inevitably made people feel a bit strange. However, that doubt only flashed by, and no one pursued the truth. Unexpectedly, the manor welcomed a little guest, Wang Yuyao. She said that when she learned that Wan came to the manor with her 6th cousin yesterday and invited many people, but didn't invite her, Wang Yuyao said that she was unhappy, so she begged her mother and came here by herself. At the same time, she also brought something for Jingwan and told her that she didn't have to go back on Great Elder Princess's birthday. She didn't prepare a big banquet this year, just a family banquet. As her goddaughter, she could go if she was in the capital, but she didn't have to worry about it if she was not in the capital. Jingwan thought that it was no wonder that she hadn't sent an invitation today. Although basically everyone knew when Great Elder Princess's birthday was, they had sent an invitation early in the past years. This year, those who had prepared a gift early would probably be annoyed. Jingwan opened the gift and found that it was a high-quality male jade pendant. Obviously, it was not for her. Jingwan turned back and gave it to Li Hongyuan. Chuckling, "Foster mother also remembers it." It made sense. Great Elder Princess's birthday was only 2 or 3 days later, so it was normal that Great Elder Princess remembered it. Li Hongyuan didn't care whether others remembered it or not. But when he saw Jingwan smile, he knew that Wan actually cared about it very much. So he took the jade pendant and said, "It's not bad. Don't be so picky. This jade pendant is very rare." Did he think that everyone was like him, who was piled up with the most precious things in the world? If her foster mother heard his words, she would probably beat him to death again. He was really asking for a beating. Jingwan knew Li Hongyuan's birthday late, so she didn't have time to prepare a gift. Jingwan didn't use her dowry at all for food and clothes, so it was better not to give him ordinary things. Maybe she could give him a surprise next year. As usual, noble consort Su sent a table of noodles. As in previous years, Li Hongyuan didn't even look at it and let people deal with it. Therefore, the people who were preparing to return to the capital the next day didn't know that they had celebrated Prince Jin's birthday in a daze. Old Master Yu Yao didn't go back. It was rare for her to come out. It was rare that the princess didn't care about her, so she naturally wanted to take the opportunity to have fun for a few days. In case she was bored, Jingwan asked her 6th and 7th sister to stay. After 2 days of relaxation, Jingwan also calmed down and began to pay attention to the many flowers and plants in the plantation, which were treasures. However, Jingwan accidentally plunged into them, so it was harder to see her than before. Li Hongyuan caught her once or twice. On the 3rd time, he said, Wan, if you do this again, don't blame me for burning these flowers and plants." Sure enough, he shouldn't have given her the things she liked. Otherwise, the one who would be ignored would be himself. Jingwan felt that a certain someone was a bit abnormal, so she quickly pacified him. If she didn't smooth things out for him, he would really burn them. At that time, she would be distressed to death. In desperation, Jingwan could only reduce the time she spent with the flowers and plants. If it really didn't work, she would pull Li Hongyuan together. Well, as long as they were together, a certain someone was quite normal. Was she that attractive to him? Should she be happy, or should she be moved by his possessiveness? Jingwan carefully thought about it. It seemed that she was quite happy. What to take? Was her mind also a bit abnormal? In fact, the flowers and plants in the plantation were taken care of very well. After all, there were many people who took care of them, and they were all quite proficient. After Jingwan basically looked at all of them, she didn't need to do anything else. She wanted to exchange her experience with others, but they didn't dare. What's more, there was a living King Yama watching over them. They trembled when they came forward to say a few words. If she let them stay for too long, they might lose control of their bowels. There was nothing to do. She couldn't just look at them in a daze. She could paint, but Jingwan didn't want to move. Jingwan looked at Li Hongyuan a little pitifully, her face full of boredom. Li Hongyuan found it funny and touched her face. How about I take Wanwan hunting? Jingwan's eyes lit up. She was about to nod when Wang Zhuyao ran over. Sister, I want to go hunting too. Obviously, she heard Li Hongyuan's words. The eyes of the two girls of the Luo family also lit up. Wang Zhuyao had little contact with Li Hongyuan, and his great achievements were rarely told to children. Therefore, Yuyao was bold in front of him. No. Jingwan bluntly refused. The forest was too dangerous. If she took her in, what if something happened? How could she explain it to her mother? Yuyao acted coquettishly, but Jingwan's heart of stone was unmoved. Yuyao rolled her eyes and turned to Li Hongyuan. She was also clever and didn't call him cousin, but brother-in-law. Li Hongyuan was undoubtedly pleased by her. Good. What's good about it? No. Jingwan glared at him. Yuyao, be good. The forest is dangerous. Otherwise, I'll ask people to make toys for you. Speaking of this, Jingwan had a flash of inspiration. She could ask people to build a small amusement park. She didn't need to think about electric things, but other things were not difficult at all. Go. Elder sister will make something fun for you. Li Hongyuan looked at the one adult and 3 children leaving. Was he forgotten again? He was a little angry. The servants at the side shrank their necks and wished they could find a hole to hide in. They had never seen a man so unprofessional and clingy to his wife. Li Hongyuan followed, wanting to see what his wife was going to do. Jingwan had an idea and moved quickly. She spread out the paper and began to draw. Her movements were very fast. The general layout of the layout was formed, and then it was time to draw the part of the blueprint. This was not difficult for her. Seeing that she was in high spirits, Li Hongyuan didn't disturb her. He looked at the blueprint. Sure enough, Wanwan's background was not ordinary. Without needing Jingwan to say anything, he ordered people to find carpenters and blacksmiths. There were some in the manor. When this part of the blueprint was formed, Jingwan saw the person she was looking for. Such a considerate husband. Don't love him too much. Seeing that Jingwan and the others were busy, and Yi quietly walked to Li Hongyuan's side. Master, there's a message in the capital. The fine brushwork created by Luo Sangongzi was plagiarized from others. Li Hongyuan's eyes were sharp. Someone dared to have ideas about his wife's things. How daring! Chapter 264. Details. When Li Hongyuan realized that Jingwan wasn't normal, he thought that fine brushwork might not have been created by her. That was because when Jingwan first started painting, her style was relatively mature. She never said that it was her work. But so what? She was the one who brought it. No matter if it was in the history of Qi Yuan or other countries, it had never existed. Thus, it belonged to her. She had given this fame and fortune to her brother. Although he wasn't happy about it, he wouldn't interfere. But now, someone wanted to interfere. No matter what their motive was, it was unforgivable. When the rumor first started, there were only a few signs. According to the preliminary information, it should be that the princess's paintings in Qi and Manor had been leaked and fell into the hands of outsiders. This time, I don't know if they were being used or if they were being used because of their own ambition. The latter is more likely. If the other party didn't take out the paintings, no one would know. If it was premeditated, the matter might be difficult to handle. 2 to 3 years is enough for the other party to fabricate the entire process. Qi and Manor doesn't have any other paintings by the princess, so the other party is very likely to make a false accusation. Madame Luo was trying to prevent the princess's paintings from being leaked. What are you all doing? How could you make such a mistake? Li Hongyuan said expressionlessly. This subordinate deserves to die. Yi lowered his head and admitted his guilt. Master, please let this subordinate deal with this matter first before receiving the punishment. Who is the mastermind behind this? Prince Rue. Li Hongyuan sneered. Li Hongming's motive was obvious. It must be said that this kind of matter, once there was a slight movement, it would quickly spread, especially when it was planned before taking action. Even if Li Hongyuan took control of the situation, it would still be difficult to control it. But in fact, this matter didn't spread quickly. It was obvious that someone was deliberately suppressing it. Other than the mastermind behind this, there was no other person. If you had been honest, I would have let you off this time. But since you insisted on bumping into me, I, Li Hongyuan, will write my name backwards if I don't make you suffer. Get someone to impeach Shen Shuhan. Either Shen Shuhan is stripped of his position as commander-in-chief, or everyone else in the Shen family is removed. And Yi's heart trembled. This was truly ruthless. The Shen family was Prince Rue's hardcore supporters. The right commander-in-chief held the military power. Shen Shuhan's death was equivalent to Prince Rue losing his left and right arms. As for the other members of the Shen family, their positions could be said to be in various aspects. If they were all defeated, the loss would be even greater. In fact, that wasn't all. In the previous plan, they were prepared to make a move on Prince Rue's money bag. But now, it wasn't that they had given up on the former and carried out the latter. It was clearly a combination of both. Why did Prince Rue have to take things so hard and provoke her master again and again? Speaking of which, this was also the sorrow of not knowing that there was a giant beast hiding in the dark. But in this way, the balance between Prince Rue and Prince Kong was broken. However, this wasn't something Yi needed to consider. He only needed to carry out Li Hongyuan's orders. Yes, Jingwan didn't completely draw out the partial blueprint. She believed that, with the visual effect, the masters below could definitely complete it by themselves. Now, what needed to be confirmed was the location of this small amusement park. It was for the younger sisters to play. After it was built, there would definitely be other little beans. Building it in this manner wasn't too good, right? A certain person's territorial awareness seemed to be a bit strong. Jingwan dismissed the 3 little girls who were bursting with curiosity. She turned back to find Li Hongyuan and asked his opinion. There's nothing bad about it. If you build one now for the children to play, it won't involve any conflict of interest. It won't be long before others will rush to imitate it. It doesn't matter if you build a few more. There's nothing to worry about. That's true. After a few years, our children can also play. Wan really thinks far ahead. Li Hongyuan chuckled with a bit of ridicule. What are you saying? Wasn't this a matter of course? She wanted to monopolize this man, so she naturally had an obligation to give birth to his children. After all, how could a man not have children here? No, this wasn't just an obligation. If their hearts were connected, the children would be the crystallization of their love and the continuation of their lives. As for a certain person becoming the emperor, he might have 3 palaces and 6 courtyards and 72 concubines. She didn't want to think about those things that hadn't happened yet. Don't you know what I'm saying, Wan? Li Hongyuan saw that she was a bit annoyed. All right, let's not talk about it. I'll tell you something. He didn't plan on hiding the previous matter from her. Jingwan slightly frowned. She knew very well that if this matter wasn't handled well, it would have a huge impact on third brother. It might even ruin his future. It was also the same for the Luo family, because no one would think that third brother did this alone. Don't worry, I'm here. Telling you is just to let you know what's going on. It's not to make you worry. Li Hongyuan stroked her forehead with his finger. If my wife's family was schemed to death, then this prince doesn't need to mingle. Jingwan felt relieved. Yes, he was here. Besides, even if it was her, she wouldn't be able to do anything. After all, the other party's position was not something she could shake. However, although she couldn't do anything, she could come up with some ideas. Jingwan pondered. The best way to cover up the rumors was to create an even more sensational rumor. Moreover, it wasn't just anyone's patent to play the blame game. Didn't I say I'm here? This kind of thing, this prince has played with it for 800 years. Jingwan was discouraged. Forget it, she'd better play by herself. However, the painting she drew in Qi and Prefecture before should be of some use. It's just that this way, some things must be explained and cleared up. With this idea, Jingwan no longer hesitated and told Li Hongyuan that the fine brushwork was originally from her own hands. However, she didn't see the slightest change in his expression. Yuan doesn't seem to be surprised at all. Did he already know? Wan is exceptionally smart. I won't be surprised at anything she does. Don't flatter me. Although it was from her hands, she didn't create it herself. Mentioning this was already very shameful. Okay, let's not talk about it. You just said that the previous paintings, including those abandoned manuscripts, were all brought to the capital? Yes, when I left Qi and Prefecture, grandmother asked me to bring them. Old Madame Luo really has foresight. Li Hongyuan said faintly. However, Luo Jinghua is quite accomplished in fine brushwork now, but he still can't compare to you. The instructor's sketches in the back were all copied by you. This is quite different from the ones you used to have. Anyone who understands painting can basically tell at a glance that it was done by two people. It's not difficult to dispel the rumors, but it's extremely difficult to completely clean him because he's not clean in the first place. What do you mean by not clean? Don't use words carelessly. Jingwan said discontentedly. You're really good to Luo Jinghua. Li Hongyuan's eyes were a little deep and serene as he said. Jingwan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He's my biological brother. I'm also your husband. I've never heard of a woman following an older brother. Let's not talk about these boring things. Okay? Li Hongyuan nodded indifferently. The time Luo Jinghua took out the paintings itself can't withstand scrutiny. It's fine if no one doubts it, but once it's suspected, this seed will definitely take root and sprout. The result may be that you'll be pushed out. Third brother won't walk the path of a great scholar in the future. It doesn't matter if there's a little stain. If I push it out, not only will he become a laughingstock, but sister-in-law will also be affected. Don't forget that painting of 100 birds looking up to the phoenix. Okay, I'll listen to you. Now, Wan, you've thought about a group of small things. What about me? I'm also very bored on weekdays. Don't you have anything to do to pass the time? Li Hongyuan asked with a smile. Wasn't Yuan a little lonely in the past? Huh? He rarely played with others. I heard that you're very good at playing, but the others? Jingwan teased. I have time to play, but I'm not interested in taking them to play. In his eyes, those people were no different from children. Taking them to play? Don't joke around. Then take them with you in the future. You're the #1 playboy in the capital. You should be a playboy to the end. Let's build a horse racing track in the village. When the time comes, we can gamble on horses. We can also build other game facilities in the track. We can make money and have fun. Tell me the details. Horse gambling is very simple. In a horse race, other people can bet on the horse they like. It's similar to the opening of a house. The horses raised by other people can also be put in the village to compete. As long as the horse wins, as the owner of the horse, he will get the corresponding share. Ordinary gambling is prohibited, but I don't think horse gambling is prohibited. Well, it's probably called an elegant thing. There will be many people involved. In addition, I'm afraid it will be very profitable. Do I lack your money to spend? You're thinking about money. The people who can enter your village are at least not ordinary people. They're also people who have fun and don't lack money. It's a waste not to make money. You have a lot of money, but it's only for now. In the future, when he became an emperor, it would be good if the national treasury was abundant. If he was not careful, he would use his private treasury. At that time, no matter how much money he had, it would be like flowing water. At that time, it would be too little. Wan, you're thinking so far ahead now. Li Hongyuan chuckled and leaned close to her ear. You should be a mother model of the world. Jingwan's eyes narrowed slightly. This was an honest admission of ambition. It was different from what she felt in her heart. Wan, how about drawing a picture of how to build a horse racing track? How about you draw a picture for me to see? Okay. Jingwan went to draw in high spirits. This time, Li Hongyuan was there the whole time. From time to time, he would ask a question or two, and occasionally express his opinion. Jingwan couldn't help but look at him again and again. She should say that he was really an all-rounder. He was good at everything. The atmosphere between the two of them was warm and harmonious. In the capital, there were many people in a gloomy state. Because of the matter of releasing concubines, Prince Rue almost couldn't maintain the gentleness on the surface. Although no one mentioned it in front of him and he was sure that there were no rumors outside, he always felt that no one knew about it. He felt that they were mocking him in their hearts. There was nothing more embarrassing than this. It would be strange if he was in a good mood. Every time he faced Luo Peishan, he would put on a fake smile and even be a little eccentric. Not only that, he seemed to be in a quagmire again. He didn't know what went wrong, but he was constantly in trouble. Although he was not always reprimanded by his father and made mistakes in his tasks as before the Spring Festival, although there were no big problems, there were many small problems. However, he couldn't ignore them, which made him very irritable. What annoyed him most was that although Great Elder Princess didn't hold a birthday banquet, as her nephew, he still needed to send a gift. However, there was something wrong with his gift. The jade guanine cracked. For people who believed in gods and Buddhas, it was unforgivable. It could be imagined how terrible Great Elder Princess's face was. Even when he came to apologize in person, Great Elder Princess refused him at the door and was reprimanded by Lu Qingdi. Although Lu Qingdi didn't say that he was disrespectful to the elders, he did say that he didn't do his best. If he treated his aunt like this, how could he be counted on for big things? What a heart-wrenching remark. It was almost the first time that Li Hongyuan flew into a rage at Princess Lu. Princess Lu was so wronged. She repeatedly promised that, before sending the gift, she had checked it over and over again. There was absolutely no problem. When she sent the steward to send the gift, she also repeatedly told him to be careful. The steward was sure that the gift was not damaged. How could Li Hongming not know that he was fooled again? He was angry, but he couldn't vent his anger. The steward was directly beaten to death, completely ignoring that the steward had done a lot for his master in the past. Li Hongming always felt that he was being dragged by an invisible hand. He was suffocating everywhere, but he didn't know where the hand came from. There were only two people who were his biggest enemies. Neither of them looked like people who could plot against him to this extent. However, he was not a conceited person. Who knew if there was someone guiding them behind the scenes? What's more, recently Li Hongyi, the Empress, and old Zhou were in a heated argument. Anyone with a discerning eye could see what was going on. However, they were so fierce that it seemed that they would turn against each other at any time. Maybe it was just a show. After the morning court, Li Hongming's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Shin Shuhan and the Shin family were impeached for dozens of serious crimes. According to the content of the impeachment, it was simply a heinous crime. Exterminating the whole family was not enough to make the people angry. Although some of the content was untrue, most of it was true. There was real evidence, but it was unconsciously exaggerated a lot. It should be known that the art of writing could sometimes make a big difference just by changing the word order. Li Hongming wanted to directly leave it alone. However, some things were related to him. Moreover, Shin Shuhan was too important to him. Whether it was public or private, he couldn't leave it alone. He was about to vomit blood. Being badly battered was not enough to describe it. Chapter 265. Li Hongming was so unlucky, and Li Hongyi was not much better. He really thought that his mother was going to give up on him. He was like a ferocious beast that was about to lose his mind. His eyes were red, and he was rash and impulsive. Now he would bite whoever he caught. Ninth prince, who was attached to him, had his legs broken by him. Originally, the empress could restrain him, and he would not do such a disgraceful thing. But now, Prince Kong regarded his mother as an enemy, and as long as the empress was biased, Prince Kong would fly into a rage. After the incident, the empress was very aggrieved, but she did not dare to preach to her only son. She was afraid that he would be unhappy and directly kill someone. Then all her schemes would come to an end. She just closed her eyes to hide all her emotions. No one knew whether she was sighing in her heart about her miscalculation or reciting scriptures to calm her anger. Li Hongyi did not hide anything when he punished people. Undoubtedly, this matter was reported to Lu Qingdi. Lu Qingdi was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He knew that his sons were fighting fiercely in private, but he deceived himself and pretended that he did not know. Or he thought that he could suppress these sons. No matter how they jumped around, they would not offend him. But now he was slapped hard in the face. At first, Li Hongyi was grounded and almost lost his title. But in the end, nothing happened to him. In this regard, he was much luckier than Li Hongming. The reason why he was dealt with leniently was because Prince Kong suddenly had an idea. With snot and tears, he complained to Lu Qingdi that the mother-son relationship between him and the empress was very deep. When he suddenly heard that he was going to be abandoned by his own mother, he was blinded by anger. However, when he came back to his senses, the big mistake had already been made. It was all his fault. It was his fault. It was his fault. It was his fault. He was soft-hearted. He was willing to apologize to Jodi. He was narrow-minded. Imperial Mother had always been good to the brothers. So it was all his fault. At first, Lu Qingdi was cold and unmoved. But who knew that Li Hongyi did not hesitate to order people to break his legs? Thus, no matter how cold Lu Qingdi's face was, he could not hold it any longer. The matter was left unsettled. However, although this matter seemed to be settled, the empress secretly gritted her teeth. That good son of hers had taken all the blame on himself, but he had unknowingly put all the blame on the empress. If she had not been looking for trouble to torment her son, then none of this would have happened. When Lu Qingdi was cold to her, the empress had no words to express her bitterness. This time, she had been viciously cheated by her son, who was at her mercy. This was not something that idiot would do. Most likely, he was instructed by someone else. Mother has been so considerate and has always thought of me. I'm grateful. It's good that you can think it through. You are my only son. Everything I do is naturally for you. Is that so? Li Hongyi smiled. You all go out first. I want to have a private talk with Mother. The leading aunt looked at the empress. After the empress nodded, she took her leave and left with the other servants. Li Hongyi sat below the empress. It seemed that it was the first time he seriously looked at the woman who gave birth to him, raised him, and taught him. It's true that I'm Mother's only son, but did Mother really do everything for me? What do you mean, son? The empress raised her eyebrows and asked calmly. Mother, don't you want to set up a puppet and take power yourself? Li Hongyi said bluntly, but his eyes were full of unconcealable gloom. Could be seen that Prince Kang's change was only superficial. After a long time, his true colors would be revealed. The empress's heart skipped a beat. She had been hiding this matter very well. Qi Yuan was the most taboo for the harem to interfere in politics. If her thoughts were known, the consequences could be imagined. But who was the empress? How could she lose her sense of propriety so easily? Her expression did not change, but her words were harsh. Who's deceiving people? It's a big crime for the harem to interfere in politics. How could Mother do such a thing? Don't talk nonsense. It doesn't matter what Mother does. But what if she implicates you? Son, who said this to you? This person must have ulterior motives. You should be careful. Li Hongyi was slightly shaken, but when he thought that Jean had guessed his mother's words and actions, his heart hardened in an instant. He smiled coldly. There's no third person here now. Mother, you don't have to pretend. Mother, don't worry. This matter won't spread. After all, with a powerful mother in charge, As the legitimate eldest son, it will be much easier. At least I won't have to worry about another legitimate brother. Son, is this how you talk to mother? The empress did not speak harshly, but Li Hongyi felt very frightened. The fear that was suppressed and not disappeared quickly took over his mind, and he seemed to shrink a little. As expected, it was just for show. After calming down, the empress did not care. Just as this stupid son said, he still needed her. As long as he had a little brain, he would not do such a stupid thing as betraying her. Li Hongyi's face turned a little pale when he saw his subconscious reaction. However, it was impossible for him to pull himself together. The empress was an insurmountable mountain to him. He was also sure that this woman was really ambitious, which made him very angry. The men in the Qi Yuan dynasty's royal family were born to like centralizing power. Brothers could fight to the death, but they could not let a woman interfere. No matter what the woman's identity was, it was absolutely not allowed. Mother, you were the one who started it. Can't you let me do the same? Mother, you want to support ninth brother, but you probably don't want to train me. You really want to take the next step and abandon me when necessary, right? In that case, there's no need to talk about feelings. Imperial Mother, being a good empress is the most important thing. Imperial Mother shouldn't interfere with Duke Dinggua's mansion and everything else. Otherwise, don't blame this son for putting righteousness before family, for the sake of Qiyuan's country. Men. Li Hongyi's men came in from outside. It's getting late and this son is a little tired, so I'll take my leave first. When this son recovers, I'll come and pay my respects to Imperial Mother. Li Hongyi sat down and half-heartedly cupped his hands, then had people carry him away. The empress did not say anything and just watched him leave. Then, she smashed the teacup in her hand. The empress was good at handling people. In the eyes of the palace servants, their master was dignified and virtuous. She rarely lost her temper. However, when she really lost her temper, even her most trusted aunt did not dare to speak rashly. The empress took a deep breath. She was actually threatened by this unfilial son? If he really exposed her, she would drag a lot of people down with her just by saying a few words. This unfilial son still wanted to be the emperor? It was more realistic in his dreams. The empress calmed down and regained her composure. It was still unknown who would win in this game. How could she not know what kind of son she raised? As the saying went, it's easy to change mountains and rivers, but difficult to change one's nature. He was useless. Even if he had someone to guide him according to his temperament, how long could he be obedient? It would not be long before he would make trouble by himself, and she would have to clean up the mess. Li Hongyi's purpose today was to confirm whether his good mother was ambitious or not. Now, even if she did not admit it herself, he basically believed it. Li Hongyi left the palace with a gloomy face and returned to Prince Kang's mansion. Then he went back to the backyard. The first thing he saw was the figure dancing in the flowers. The red gauze dress outlined her figure vaguely. Her eyes were full of the deepest love in the world. Li Hongyi instantly threw the negative emotions out of his mind. His eyes were full of greed and desire. After the song, the woman in red came forward slowly. Alluring prince, greetings. Ruer, dispense with the formalities. Li Hongyi reached out and grabbed her, then continuously kneaded her. That smooth skin really made people unable to part with it. If it was not for the fact that it was inconvenient for him to move, he might have directly pounced on her. Alluring Rao snuggled up to his feet, and her hand slid up his calf. Whether it was her movement or her eyes, they were all unusually provocative. In broad daylight, even if it was inconvenient for Li Hongyi, he still enjoyed the ultimate pleasure. Alluring Rao spat out the white dust in her mouth, then raised her red lips and looked at Li Hongyi. This exquisite scene undoubtedly greatly satisfied Li Hongyi's vanity and self-esteem. Ruer, Ben Wang's good Ruer, you are really a good treasure. Not only was she like her name, but she was also smart. Moreover, she was not a virgin like he had expected. On their first night together, she was so young and inexperienced, and her blood was so bright. More importantly, she was completely dependent on him. She was not as strong as his mother. There was nothing more delightful than this. Alluring Rao leaned on his side and vaguely mentioned the matter of him entering the palace. But at this time, Li Hongyi was completely defenseless. After all, it was Ruer who reminded him. Otherwise, he might never know what kind of person his mother was. Although he was more afraid, his admiration was not fake. But the result was, it was all fake. Fake. Moreover, it was Ruer who made him have the bearing of a prince. Before, this slave was only guessing. Perhaps it was a misunderstanding. Prince, don't be estranged from the Empress. Chapter 266. Before, this slave was only guessing. Perhaps it was a misunderstanding. Prince shouldn't be estranged from the Empress, Yarao said to Li Hongyi with a bit of worry. Her expression seemed as if she was really thinking for the sake of the other party. Rest assured, Rao, she won't fall out with me. Li Hongyi stroked Yarao's hair. He had completely forgotten that when he entered the imperial palace today, every word and action, it was actually all thanks to Yarao's guidance. It was just that she had said it very euphemistically, so he probably didn't realize this point himself, and only thought that he was being firm this time. It's all this slave's fault. Otherwise, Prince and Empress wouldn't be like this. This slave is a sinner. Rao, don't say it like that. If not for you cleverly pointing out some doubtful points, Ben Wang would still be in the dark. Or, Rao, do you want Ben Wang to be deceived by others? Li Hongyi said softly, but that ruthless aura was so obvious. He had been a good son for so many years because he had a little bit of self-knowledge about his own ability. So, for the sake of the throne, he could endure the humiliation. But the fact was not like that. It could be imagined how big the fall in his heart was, how big the blow was, and how heavy the resentment was. So, it was natural for his heart to be distorted. Coupled with the injury on his leg, it made his temper very bad. Yarao seemed to be afraid and trembled. Naturally not, Prince, no matter what, this slave will definitely stand on your side. This slave was alone and had no one to rely on all my life. In order to protect my chastity, I suffered all kinds of hardships. But now, fortunately, I have Prince's care, so I can live a peaceful life and enjoy a luxurious life. Prince's kindness to the slave is the same as giving me a new life. What Prince thinks is what this slave thinks, and what Prince points is what this slave will follow. There is nothing more important than Prince. Li Hongyi's heart was greatly satisfied, so he began to use all kinds of sweet words to coax her. After a while, Yarao persuaded him to do something. Now was the critical moment, so he should take advantage of this opportunity to let His Majesty see his sincerity and ability. Even though he was injured, he could still be so diligent. His Majesty would inevitably take pity on him, and then he would do several beautiful tasks to win back His Majesty's heart. As the eldest son, there was no reason for him to pass the throne to others. Although this slave hopes that Prince can accompany you at all times, but the important matter, this slave can't delay Prince because of my own reasons. There were even tears in her eyes. Li Hongyi was very touched. Then, he asked, affectionately, Jin will help me, right? Prince is wise and wise. Why do you need this slave's help? Presumably, Prince is confident in everything. The reason why you asked other people was to test them, to see if they have the ability to share the glory and splendor with you. Not to mention this slave. Anyone by Prince's side is just a small pawn. It's natural for them to go through water and tread on fire for Prince. No matter how good their achievements are, it's all because Prince knows how to make good use of people and has good leadership. She was so sincere. Prince Kong was very moved. In his heart, it was as comfortable as eating iced sour plum soup in the summer. Sure enough, there was no one in the world who understood him better than Yarao. Feeling refreshed, he went to do his work. After he walked away, Yarao's face was still infatuated. She stared at Prince Kang's back, but her eyes were like a pool of stagnant water. She lived in this courtyard now. Since she helped him get rid of the fate of being a marquis, she moved in. Although it couldn't be compared to the main courtyard, it was very exquisite and luxurious. However, she didn't care about these things. Yarao got up and returned to the soft couch in the pavilion. Like a boneless snake, she lay lazily and played with her hair in boredom. She and the Empress of Qi Yuan were two different kinds of people. However, they had one thing in common, which was the desire for power. It was just that the path they took was different. She wanted to be in the same position as a man. She could be a minister and didn't need to rule the world. Her birth meant that she couldn't reach that step. He promised her that when the matter was done, she would be conferred the title of Marquis in the future. Marquis, the kind that could go to the court and participate in the political affairs. Perhaps it was because she was thinking about others and had not been influenced by others, but after learning about the current situation in the capital, she vaguely felt that something was wrong. In fact, she had basically confirmed this when Li Hongyi went to the palace. Even according to Li Hongyi's description, the Empress had only said a few words, and Li Hongyi, that idiot, didn't see the change in the Empress of Qi Yuan's expression, but she could see a kind of tacit agreement mentality from it. So, everything was within Yaorao's prediction. She guided Li Hongyi according to the possible development of the situation, and not just one version. This kind of thing for her was simply an easy task, just like how she easily controlled Li Hongyi's emotions just now. The target was a brain, arrogant, conceited person who liked to say nice things. To be honest, if this kind of person became the emperor, he would definitely be an incapable ruler. So, the empress couldn't train her son with her heart, but Yaorao was able to make Li Hongyi obedient to her in just a few days. In the end, where did she lose? In the end, the empress was just using high pressure to control Li Hongyi. But Yaorao was different. She could clearly grasp a man's psychological state, and at the same time she could think of every possible way for the other party. Especially with Li Hongyi's current state, it was too easy for her to take advantage of it. But it was too simple and it was a bit boring. There were too many men who were defeated by her, but it was really the first time that she was so relaxed like this. However, she would still stay in Prince Kang's fu. After all, there was no better way to get the information she wanted than to follow a Wang who held real power. Moreover, she didn't need to do it herself, as the other party would take the initiative to deliver it. Not only was there no difficulty, there was also no danger to her life. It was just a pity. If Prince Kang could be swapped with Prince Jin, it would be even more perfect. However, the other party still hadn't resolved the conflict with Prince Jin. However, according to the understanding of the situation these past few days, the other party really didn't have any power. No matter how secretive the average person was, they couldn't stop someone from spying on them day and night, right? If they were really planning something big, it was impossible to not have any contact with the court officials. If they were aware of it and deliberately avoided it, it would be fine. But she thought that her actions were secretive, and the people she used this time were all new faces that had just been arranged. Moreover, they had undergone strict training and were very strong in all aspects. Even so, she still couldn't find anything wrong. Then, was she really thinking too much? She fiercely frowned, and in the end, she could only put this matter aside for the time being. She still needed to understand more about the Qi Yuan's matters in the capital. When necessary, she might have to meet some spies that shouldn't be easily touched. For now, it was better to wait a little longer. However, regarding Prince Jin, she could still understand from the side. Didn't Prince Kang's fu still have a few tricksters that just came over from Prince Jin's fu? It would be a waste if she didn't use them. Small people also had their uses. Some inconspicuous matters might provide her with unexpected gains. Therefore, Yaorao turned her head and let people call a few people over. She glorified it as in order to better serve Wang Ye. After Prince Kang learned about it, his mood couldn't be too good. Sure enough, it was this kind of beauty that won his heart the most. On the other hand, Li Hongming originally suspected that he had been plotted against by others. However, after seeing Li Hongyi's recent behavior, he was almost certain that everything that happened to him couldn't be separated from him. Obviously, he also wanted to get rid of Xin Shuhan, the right commander-in-chief. For a time, he or the person he supported was pushed down by everyone. There were countless people who threw stones at him when he was down. Even if Li Hongming's people all went together, it was still somewhat insufficient. Now, it was a choice between two. Either Shin Shuhan admitted that the other people in the Shin family were working for him, shouldering all the blame and returning home to hold his child, or the other people would be lenient. Good. They would push all the blame onto him and take the blame of improper discipline. Then, they would confiscate some of his salary and the others would probably be severely punished. Under the influence of some people, there was no third path to choose. The final result of the discussion was still to protect Shin Shuhan. For Li Hongming, military power was really too important. This was almost expected, but the loss of other people in the Shin family also made Li Hongming so angry that he vomited blood. In this way, Li Hongyuan's goal was perfectly achieved. However, such a heavy blow didn't make him depressed. Instead, it aroused a stronger fighting spirit. His eyes were red, and he secretly swore that he must find other ways to make up for it. Not only did he begin to trip up Li Hongyi openly and secretly, but he also fiercely reorganized his own people. Some things, before they were exposed, he would first nip them in the bud. His actions were ruthless, and there were many people who were angered and punished. However, this was indeed effective. At least, his continuous troubles were reduced a lot. This continued for more than half a month before Li Hongming was able to take a breather. When he went back to ask about the fine brushwork, the matter had been completely suppressed. In order to avoid suspicion, he didn't put people under his eyes, and he couldn't send too many people to protect them. Because once there were too many people, it would definitely arouse suspicion. After all, the other party was a poor scholar with a little talent in painting. What ability did he have to make people pay attention to him? However, there were also self-proclaimed righteous people who spontaneously protected the other party to prevent Luo Shangshu from using extreme means. It was because of this that someone took advantage of the loophole. If he wasn't careful, someone would discover that the painting that was said to be from a few years ago had actually been retouched. There was even a draft in the middle. It looked like it was from a few years ago and should still be in its initial stages. There were still traces of freehand brushwork, but it obviously had Luo Jinghua style. Just like this, it was obvious that the other party got the draft of Luo Jinghua, and for the sake of fame, they were unscrupulous. It was not that no one suspected that the Luo family did something, but wasn't this slapping the righteous people in the face? They protected the other party so well. How could the Luo family do something? When the truth was revealed, he felt that his loyalty had been trampled on. He also felt that he had let down the Luo family. With the Luo family's reputation, how could they do such a thing? Out of anger and guilt, the poor scholar was beaten to the point of almost losing his life. This matter was left unsettled. However, when Li Hongming faced Luo Peishan, he always felt that the other party's eyes were very cold. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.